I would say Glenn Maxwell could be X factor.
I don't believe in it. I don't believe in it. I'll not sell it because he has been the X factor for n number of teams in n number of seasons, but he hasn't delivered. Welcome back to One Cricket Unscripted. It is time to talk about the defending champions. The defending champions, can they defend their title? Like, are they capable enough to do what is almost impossible because T20 is the most unpredictable format of them all?
Defending champions plus the hosts. Australia, I think, has a good chance. They might defend, but if you see, means once again, if you look at the chemistry, the combination of the team, it looks barring a few holes, it looks well balanced. But how they execute their plans, how they do in the matches, how they do in the big days, that's of course going to matter.
See, what I think of Australia is they are a completely balanced outfit, but they have a problem of plenty. And when you have a problem of plenty, it depends on how you choose players, how you pick the players for the best conditions. If you do it right,
for that day,
yeah, for that day, if you do it right, then they are probably the best squad in this World Cup.
of course.
But can they pick the right players? Because
I
they
think
have
the
their
biggest
holes.
dilemma that they will be having is between Marcus Stoinis and Tim David, who to go with. Marcus Stoinis, the all-rounder with his batting abilities and his bowling abilities, can be a big contribution, can keep a big contribution to the team. But again, speaking of Tim David, he is a big hitter, but he has not. His bowling is not enough tested in the international format. So who to pick?
See, I'll go with Marcus Stoinis. I'll be honest. I'll give you a reason. I think the reason is good enough to go with him because Mitchell Marsh hasn't bowled for a lot, big time. He hasn't played enough international games for a big time period. So now what you have is you need all-rounders. Australia depends on number of all-rounders. They don't depend on an all-rounder. They don't depend on a Glenn Maxwell to do it for them. They don't depend on a Marcus Stoinis. They don't depend on Mitchell Marsh. So they need multiple options, and I don't believe Tim David is that good a bowler. Stoinis in the last fixture, if it might be the last fixture against England or the second last fixture against England, he picked up 2 or 3 wickets, and he showed that he's a thinking cricketer, and thinking cricketers often do it right in the T20I format. That is why I'll prefer Stoinis over Tim David. But there will be situations where I'll be tempted to think otherwise.
Yes. That's what I am saying, that the biggest confusion or the biggest dilemma for the Australian think tank would be to pick who to pick between Stoinis and David.
Okay. Can we say that the bowling unit is done and dusted? Like, it is pretty much sorted, that this is the bowling unit that they'll play apart from if injuries happen, because I see Mitchell Stark, Josh Hazelwood, Pat Cummins, Adam Zampa as their 4 bowlers. I don't see them going into the match with 5 bowling options. They'll depend on the all-rounders.
I also don't see any other bowling options Australia preferring with, and this would be their settled bowling lineup for the majority of the tournament, if not again injury plagues any of them. But this should be the team combination in case of bowling.
Okay, so this is all done for Australia, but now we'll talk about the major talking point that the Australian media at this point is not discussing. I feel that the Australian media is not talking enough about, or media in general is not talking enough about. Steve Smith struggling for form, 12 or 13 innings, 7 single-digit scores. Aaron Finch not firing. Aaron Finch trying himself in the middle order. When he is clear of the fact that he'll open, then why are you trying in the middle? Be consistent at the top and try to bring the best out in you. Because 2011, you won the World Cup despite not being the good enough batter that you once were. So I believe he's not the best batter. He's not good enough to be the batter in the team.
See, I believe that when you speak of Finch, Aaron Finch is playing in that team because of his captaincy. Means
but the captaincy can be swapped. You have multiple options in that team.
Yes, of course, they have multiple options in the team, but the fact is that this person has led the team. He has won the World Cup. You don't just put him off like that.
Yeah, and that's the only reason I believe that he is still leading the team, because he has left the ODI captaincy, and I believe this is his last tournament as the leader of Australia.
That too. But and you spoke about Steve Smith. See, I personally am a big fan of that man. He is a pedigree player once again. big class, big player. And one more thing that I have noticed in Steve Smith is that he performs in the big matches when the pressure is on him in any format. People will say that his T20 record is not that good, but he has done well in T20 cricket also. In T20 means in leagues he has done well under pressure. So I believe that that man can fire in this tournament.
Okay, you believe in Steve Smith. See, I love a Steve Smith personally. I love anchors. I love anchors in the T20I format. But what happens with Australia is that Aaron Finch and Steve Smith both are anchors. Finch actually is not an anchor. But because he's not scoring runs, I tend to think that he's an anchor. He'll be dismissed early and then walks in Steve Smith to play the anchoring role. What does it cost you? It costs you a Cameron Green. Yes. He's not a part of the squad, to be precise, but it does cost you a Cameron Green, because if Steve Smith or David Warner were the captain of this side, Cameron Green was a certainty to open with David Warner.
Yes, of course, replacing Finch. So that's the biggest thing. Means Cameron Green showed himself that he proved himself how dynamic a batter he is in the India series, and after that England series.
India series, the way that man was swinging that blade, we were fearing him because of that big back lift and that swing and the stature of the man. He's a powerful hitter. But yes, Cameron Green is not a part of the squad, but they still have enough horsepower in that team, if I can say that.
Yes, but I would say that this Australian team on the paper looks a great side, but this Australian team lacks, what it lacks is recent performances, recent decent performances. See, every one of them is in a bit of dicey kind of a form. David Warner is not playing that much, has not played that much going into the tournament.
And not just David Warner. David Warner, Mitchell Marsh, Marcus Stoinis are the few players who have not been playing recently. Even Steve Smith is a player who has not been playing that many games.
And one more biggest concern for the Australian team is going to be Mitchell Stark's on and off form. He has been picking up wickets, yes, but he has been giving runs. Yeah. So on a day where a batting lineup like India's.
See, I'll disagree to you somewhere here, because I believe Australia do not need Mitchell Stark, a consistent bowler. They just need him to go for it. Even if he concedes a few runs, there are bowlers who are consistent and who will not concede that many runs.
Yes, of course. But come the big tournaments, Mitchell Stark becomes a deciding factor. Okay. If you see the 2015 World Cup,
he is a deciding factor.
He becomes a deciding factor, and when such an X-factor bowler is not firing for you, it will get your captain thinking.
Okay. But that is where the roles of the all-rounders come in, and that is why what I started off the video with saying that you'll have to pick the right players.
The horse for the course.
Yeah, the horse for the course. But Australia don't tend to do it. That is something like I am a bit worried about. All bases covered, a complete outfit, Aaron Finch, Steve Smith, a bit of a question mark over them, and that is it. That is it for Australia. So who is the X factor? Pick the X factor and let's be done with this.
I would say Glenn Maxwell could be X factor.
I don't believe in it. I don't believe in it. I'll not sell it, because he has been the X factor for n number of teams in n number of seasons, but he hasn't delivered.
But the fact is that when Maxi fires, everything goes berserk. So that's the thing that only means most of the cricket experts, if you talk to them, they would also pick Glenn Maxwell to be the X factor.
And that is why I'm differing, because I know people will back him. People will still back him to be the X factor, but I don't feel it. Yes, there is this sense that when he puts on that yellow jersey, he's a much more responsible guy.
Yeah.
This is something I agree to, but I don't believe he'll be the X factor. I'll believe. What I am going to say is Australia's campaign will be decided on the basis of the three all-rounders, the combination of the three all-rounders that they play, and if the three remain injury-free. I don't think Mitchell Marsh, Marcus Stoinis and Glenn Maxwell. So I'll exclude Maxwell because he'll be playing the majority of the tournament, but if injury hits these two, any of the two, and specifically if it hits Mitchell Marsh, you don't have a replacement in the squad.
See, I would say one thing to you. Glenn Maxwell, as I said, he could be the X factor. But if you are looking at a player who is carrying Australia throughout the tournament to go the distance, it's not Maxwell. Yeah. I think that contribution could be made by someone like a Mitchell Marsh, who is very dynamic with his bat. With the ball, he is not doing the bowling. Okay. If he would have bowled, he would have been a much better option, much more.
I think come the World Cup, He might not bowl in the Super 12s initially, but he will bowl at some
But
stage.
that Mitchell Marsh, the batter, also turned the matches in last World Cup, and I see him doing that in this World Cup also.
Okay, so you are backing a injury-ridden Mitchell Marsh to bounce back directly and do it at the international stage. I hope he does it. My backing will
But
always be
as
on
a,
David Warner. I've been a David Warner fanboy because of what he does, and I'll back David Warner with it. Yes, what you had something to
yes,
add.
I was saying that Mitchell Marsh bouncing back means in the last World Cup the way he played under pressure. That is what giving me the confidence that he might do it again.
Okay, so that is it for Australia. That's a wrap. We'll be back again with yet another discussion.